Micah and I had a fight last night.
I don't believe it.
Disclaimer before I get going. Micah is the one who said, you should tell Sallie we had a really big fight last night. So for anyone who's listening and thinking that I am just talking about my husband, I'm not. This was his idea. No, we had a big fight last night. And it came out of just being discouraged with where kind of the season that we're in. And it doesn't mean that our whole life sucks and that we're just sad all the time and that we're miserable. It just means that things aren't ideal. Mm-hmm. And Micah and I are very different people, surprise, in the way that we approach and handle things. And I am much more of, look at the bright side, and tomorrow the sun's going to come up and everything's going to be fine. And if we're down, at least we'll get up. And Micah is not that way. And there's good and bad to that, I think, because, I mean, obviously just being opposites, I think we bring that out in each other. And when one is in a certain position, either if my head's up in the clouds, Micah can bring me back down to reality in a good, loving way. And likewise, when he is down in the dumps, I can kind of bring things to light of, okay, let's look back on things. But yeah, it was just, it was a long night. I'm tired. I'm tired today.
It was late into the night.
Yeah, I mean, it was pushing midnight.
Doesn't he have to get up at like 4?
He do have to get up at 4, 3:30.
Oh my gosh.
So he is
took
running.
A nap.
He needs a nap. He's running on little to no sleep, as am I, but I had a couple more hours on him than he got in. But yeah, I don't know. Sometimes it's just you feel like, nah, you know?
I feel like my year has kind of been like that. Mm-hmm. Holly and I have talked about this. I don't know how many of the podcast listeners know. I have a business. It's called The Urban Acres.
What?
TheUrbanAcres.com.
Go check it out.
Go check it out.
We link it in the show notes every week.
And I started in 2019 when I was pregnant with Dot, and it was started out of a desire to stay home, to be able to stay home with her. So I started an Etsy.
I have a question. How pregnant were you when you started it? I don't think I knew that. We obviously didn't know each other at that time. I didn't even know you existed.
I got pregnant in January, and I think I had started selling things I had by like April or maybe March or April. Okay. So it was like one of those, I knew I was supposed to start it. It was like, need to start it. And I knew specifically go to Etsy. And so I did. And I started it. And it was during the summer. It was just me and my dog, Lola, at home.
God rest her soul.
God rest her soul. And I would just work all day, me and Lola, making stuff, taking pictures. It was super, super small. Started gaining traction. It was a fun way to spend the day. It was also hotter than hell in Oklahoma. So it was a great way to spend my time. And then by Christmas, she was born in October. The weekend that she was born, I was really starting to pick up traction. I remember the day before I went into the hospital. It was a Sunday night. I was working all day, and my phone just kept going off with orders like ding, ding, ching, ching. And I was like, that's crazy. And I went into labor, and I was like, I have to get all these orders packed. And I got in labor, packed all of my orders, and then Andrew's aunt came and picked him up and took him to the post office for me. So I was starting to gain traction. And then when she was little, November, December, I would work when she was napping, and then she'd be awake, and I'd feed her and hold her, put her down, and like continued working, like just busting it out. And by the end of December, I looked at my sales, and for that year I had made $20,000 in sales, which does not mean that I made $20,000, but I was like, oh, you were selling. Crazy. This is a thing. And then we all know what happened in 2020.
I had a baby.
Holly had a baby.
We met.
And we did meet. And when everything shut down, people were looking for things to do. So my business exploded. It was crazy. In January of 2020, I did as much money. No, that was 2021. But I did basically what I had done the whole year before in 1 month. It was crazy.
Yeah.
And I was doing it at that time still mostly by myself. So like during nap time, busting it out and then playing with her and then all of that. So it's like going and getting traction, and I'm feeling like I'm so successful.
Such a businesswoman.
But I still don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I'm learning as I go. And then last year, I was pregnant with George. I slowed way down because I was pregnant. And I don't like to label myself as like, I had depression. But I just did not feel like doing anything.
Yeah.
And so sales slowed, and they slowed, and we're coming into 2022, and it's like, I'm still making money, but it's slow. It's a lot slower than it has been before. And I am a person, I'm realizing, I was journaling about this today. It's like, I think I rely too much on, am I being affirmed by everyone else around me? And that's why when I had the money, I was like, I'm amazing. And now it's like, nobody loves me. I have a crappy product, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just realizing to ride the waves of my feelings is a roller coaster I want to get off of. And when I was driving over here, I was thinking about, I've just been thinking about this a lot, and how I meet with Courtney, our friend Courtney, who was on the podcast a couple weeks ago, and Holly, and kind of bring you guys my woes. And I was thinking, I can't keep bringing them the same issues every time. Because that's going to get old, and they've told me the answer, and I have to go do it now. And I was thinking about that because I had a friend a long time ago who had this crazy boyfriend, and she would want to come talk to me, and I'd be like, you need to break up with him. And then she'd come back and be like, he did this. And I'm like, well, you need to break up with him. And she never did. And eventually I was like, I can't meet with you anymore because you're complaining about a problem that we already know what needs to happen. And sorry, I can't help you. And I was realizing I'm kind of being that girl, just going like, this is what's not working. And I know what needs to happen. And so it's kind of been a put your big girl pants on season. And also realizing to be cut out for business means having confidence and being a self-starter. And when things don't go right, do I have the ability to go, okay, that didn't go right, I'm going to try something else. Or like, I need to quit.
I give up.
So I give up.
This is hard.
Yeah, and I'm going, why am I like this? Because there are other things like physical discipline that if I go to the gym and, weigh myself and I'm up a couple pounds, I'm not like, I need to quit. I go, okay, well, double down. I know what I need to do. But for this, I get discouraged so easily. And so it's kind of been anyway.
I think it's hard in the sense of running a business in this. I mean, I think running a business is challenging in any time, but there's something about having so much access to everyone and everything at all times of the day. And the only one that can stop you is yourself. Yeah. It's not that you were going to a newspaper stand to read the latest and greatest about the updates on all the other businesses. But when that newsstand closed, you couldn't go to it anymore. So you were cut off. It's like, no, we have constant access to everything. And so I think from a business perspective, we tend to, like everyone else, well, my escape is I'll scroll on my phone and just look at things. And how someone who maybe works like a corporate job or has something to where it's not directly tied to their action and them making something happen, it's more of like they get to kind of leave it at work. The flip side of having it in your home and having it be something that's in your control is you have to be really mindful and protective of scrolling, what you're consuming, because I think everything could be a direct, I'm not doing that right. I'm not doing this right. Just the same as someone who, okay, let's switch gears, not a business owner, but someone who wants to get in shape. Mm-hmm. If you're constantly down in the dumps, but then you get on social media or you're just things that you're consuming, it could be a movie that you're watching and then going like, well, I don't know. Mm-hmm. And you kind of start that like, woe is me talk almost, and then going, why can I not just get out of this funk? And that's kind of what Micah and I's conversation revolved around yesterday was what are the steps that need to be taken? And if we can define them, why are they so hard to take? Yeah. Why does it feel like the greatest challenge to just do the thing that I know I need to do? But it's the very thing that's like keeping me strapped in and like, oh, I can't do it. No one's going to let me out. And I think that's something that's common across the board, just in everybody, is that there are simple things that we need to do. And sometimes, I mean, also, let's just be honest, sometimes life is just, seasons are discouraging. Yeah. Maybe sometimes, especially with business, sales are not always going to be at the highest high, because also if they are, that's just your normal, and you could probably go up from there or go down. But it's like there's something about when it doesn't feel like all the stars have aligned and it feels like everything's against you, down to like, I'm having a bad day and then I burned dinner and it was the last straw, and it's like it feels like one thing after the other, and it's like, man, how do I get out of this?
Yeah, and I think the stress that I'm under now, I'm like, well, I don't want this to be my whole life. Like, I don't want to be stressed forever. Like, this isn't worth it to me. Like, the reward is not worth what it's costing me right now. But I also think, okay, I am willing to keep pushing until I either know it's time to quit or there's some sort of a breakthrough. I was thinking of Kendra Scott.
Oh.
I think she is the richest female entrepreneur. It's either her or Sarah Blakely who came up with Spanx.
Yes.
And they have, both of them, if you listen to the How I Built This podcast, they have interviews with Guy Raz. Really amazing stories. Kendra Scott, so she has a huge business. She started a hat shop first, and it went bankrupt, I think. Like, she had to close it down because she was going to be the person like bringing back wearing cool hats, and nobody wanted that.
We're not doing that.
So she was making like jewelry in her house and got a big order and had someone help her, and now like look where she's at. Sarah Blakely was the same thing. Like, she wanted to make Spanx. Nobody would listen to her. She did. And then, I mean, I own Spanx. So I'm not saying that I want to be the richest female entrepreneur, but I just think, gosh, I'd hate to quit so close to a breakthrough, but I don't have the benefit of knowing when that will be. I just have to keep walking out what those steps are. So I started doing the journal. If you go back and listen to Courtney's episode, Living Intentionally with Courtney Weston, it's a great episode. She created a journal, and it starts with 5 things you're grateful for, and each week has you write down like a word to focus on. There's a scripture that you're like thinking about. And so I started it this week, and my word was faith. And so because the scripture I was reading was really like kept going back to that. And I'm kind of in this spot where I'm just going, do I know that I know that I know that way back there in 2019 that this was something that I was supposed to do? Yes, I have no doubt about that. Like, I know this was the step. And then I got in 2020, I was sitting in my office, and I'm careful to say, like, I heard the voice of God. Yeah. It was just like a knowing. I was thinking about, this is going to be a blessing to my family. And I just very much heard, this is not just about you. This is about blessing other families through you, other moms specifically. And I was just like, whoa, because I wasn't thinking that. I was only thinking about me. And after that, we started using, I have mostly moms wind yarn for me because punch needle, whatever. So I've been able to give mothers who want to stay home with their kids opportunity. So I look at those two things. I'm like, do I know that those were like two milestone markers that I was supposed to do? And I'm like, yes. And then I think, has there been any other like direction, any other like do this, don't do this? And I'm like, no. And I'm like, then go back to that's what you're supposed to do. And I wish that there would just be like, thus saith the Lord, Sallie, you are supposed to do.
The spotlight comes down from the sky.
I want you to invest in this and this, and these are the changes. But I think part of what this year has been is like a slowing down to reevaluate. So 2020 was wild for me. 2021 was just kind of managing that. And now this year it's been like, do you want to be a real business? Then you have to operate like one. So you can't keep moving 100 miles per hour in the same direction. You need to go back and get your crap together. Like that's what I've been feeling. And getting your crap together is not the fun part of business.
No, not. It's honestly not the fun part of any part of life at all.
No. And I think that's why it's been discouraging because I was doing like, I'm doing fun things and people like it and whatever. And now I'm not really doing fun things. Like I'm not making as much like projects. I'm not posting as many cool, fun things. And it's like, because I'm on my computer organizing spreadsheets. Like, and that is not fun. But I also know if I am going to grow, I have to do that. And if my goal is to provide income opportunities to other people, then I have to take a step and grow so that they can flourish through my flourishing. And that's it's just not fun.
Well, and that's also through Micah and I's conversation, just kind of talking about there is the side to anything, whether you're creating something or running a business, that it's like, I'm starting something new. This is fun and it's exciting, which is always my favorite part of everything is it's like, let's start all the new things. Let's do all the projects like we've talked about before on the podcast, buy all the paint supplies, invest your money deeply. And then it's like, and then I crap out. And it's like, well, no, most everybody craps out on the in-between, but it's like, these are the traits of someone who presses through and decides that, okay, I don't get to have fun right now, but that doesn't mean that that's forever. And that's kind of something that our conversation was going back to was, this is not forever. Whether it's good, bad, or ugly today, like it's going to change because that's how life goes. We're not going to be stuck in one situation or scenario for very long. We don't know how long it's going to be. So it's like, I don't know how long we'll be in this weird in-between phase, but it's like, that doesn't mean that I can't do the work and kind of like what you said, go back to what I know. Yeah. What I know to be true and let that sustain me until I know something else. Because it's like, otherwise, this is where I'm at.
Yeah. And not being ruled by my feelings. So I was talking to, or Andrew was talking to me about my dad has a podcast. My dad is a pastor and he has a podcast, and he was doing a series called, it's like 4 Things Every Leader Needs to Know. I have heard my dad my whole life.
You don't listen to him all the time?
But I'm listening to this podcast because it was like, I need this right now. I need to know. The first thing was, you need to be a self-starter. And he was talking about when that means when things are not going well and it feels like nobody is supporting you, like you are a self-starter. And I was just like, I don't want to hear this right now. I need somebody to like help me. And he's like, you need to be a self-starter. And then the second thing was confidence. I was listening to you today. I didn't finish the episode. And I was just like, I'm kind of lacking that. I'm just kind of going, I need someone to help me. I don't know if this is a good idea. And I'm like, that's not how a business runs.
It's also, as you said that, the thought popped into my head of, isn't it funny that in the most self-help driven society, we all need help constantly? Like, it's like we don't cut it out ourselves. Like we can't, it's almost like we can't just do it all the time. And it's like, maybe the self-help I need isn't necessarily figuring out how to better meditate on something in my day. And it's more of like, no, that means that I don't get to be the victim all the time. It means that sometimes I've messed up. I've dropped the ball. Not that I've caused bad things to happen to me or something, but just that, okay, if it feels like life sucks right now, that it sucks right now, but what can I do today?
Yeah.
That's something that I've been focusing on walking through this, is just like, okay, all I have before me is today. And all I can do is take the next right step today. Whatever happens, next week is what happens next week. And it's easy for me with my job with like photography, is I'm booking things out and I'm looking ahead to like, well, I've got something next May. So once we get through, next week and then go through July, it's easy for me to skip ahead and go, so this is wasted time. Like I'm already out of time because here we are. And one of my toxic traits is that if it's noon, I'm like, well, it's already almost 5. And I'm being 100% serious. This is not me being silly.
Possibly start anything else
I
right now.
I can't do anything new. I couldn't get into something. But then time passes and I go, well, why didn't I get anything done? Why didn't I go for a walk today? Oh, because I made a really sorry excuse for myself.
It's the frustration, but it's also an encouragement. It's frustrating in that, dang it, I'm not doing what I should be doing.
Right.
It's encouraging because that means that I have the power to change, and it's not dependent upon someone else, and I'm not beholden to, well, this person doesn't believe in me. It's like I've got the power to change that if I want to. And so we met with someone on Monday to talk about just like what scaling would look like. And he asked Andrew and I, he's like, these are the questions that you need to be asking yourself. What do you really want? What is it going to take to get it? And how much are you willing to pay? And I was like,
those are good questions.
Yeah, because I think there's a disconnect between what I really want and how much I'm willing to pay. And I told Andrew, I said, I think if I'm being honest with myself, what I want is more than I have let on. I've been like, I just want this to be a hobby, blah, blah, blah. And I think I want it to be a hobby in that I want to not have to work at it very hard. But really what I want is for this to be something awesome, something that I'm proud of, something that other people are proud of, which is the gross part of it. I'm like, oh, it's kind of gross. But there's a disconnect between how much I'm willing to pay right now. And so because I'm not willing to not be with my kids most every day, and I'm not willing to wake up at like 4 and get how many hours of work done before they wake up, it can't be that big, huge thing because there's a disconnect between how much I'm willing to pay. So I'm having to go, it can be something big, but not right now. Now it needs to be something manageable that I can actually do with the time that I have. And that, I think, is where the dust has settled and getting more established and like, oh, okay, this is kind of what it looks like. So if this is what it looks like, how much time needs to go to keep it functioning like that, if that makes sense.
I think it makes sense.
All that to say, I have to remind myself, first of all, I'm 30 and that is not old.
You are 30, I'm flirty,
yes,
and thriving.
I think culturally I've had in my head, like, you better get everything you're going to accomplish done by the time you're 30 or else blah, blah, blah. And I think, well, look at Joanna Gaines, look at Martha Stewart, look at whoever. But also going, my kids are little and I want to be with them more than I want to be at an office working. And so for right now, my business output has to match the input. And so I have to just go, okay, I'm okay with that. Because someday they will be in school or they'll be grown and I will have
all the time
the time I want. And
probably more time than you will want.
And probably I'll be going, I wish they were. Could you not die?
I swallowed wrong. Oh my God.
Holly is recuperating. You okay?
I'm alive. I'm dead.
I will have the time, and I don't want to, when I get to that point, go, man, I wish I wasn't pushing so much when they were little.
Yeah.
I wish I just sat on the couch and played with them or picked Georgie up. Because they're just, now that I have 2, and Dot is going to be, she's 2.5, she'll be 3 this year, and now I'm seeing how fast it goes. I'm going, 2 more years and she'll be in school. 2 more summers and she will be in school. So that just puts everything into perspective. Like, okay, then I need to just chill and it's not that wanting to be productive and successful is inherently bad, but I am just also evaluating why for me.
Well, and I think like you mentioned earlier, the thing is that we're not given a roadmap to how to do this, whether it's motherhood or running a business. I mean, you can read all the blogs and articles and what the experts say, but it's like at the end of the day, it comes down to, what do I want? What do we want as a family, as a home? What do we want for our home? What are we willing to pay for that? And not necessarily dollar signs. We're talking time. Your time is worth a lot more than any money could cover. And it just goes back to, it's going to look different for everyone.
Yeah.
Because, I know I have very, very close friends who, for them in this season, it doesn't look the same as like what my priorities look like, having a small child and then also running a business. And that's okay. It doesn't mean one's right or wrong. It just means you cannot measure up your life next to someone who you're not living it with. Like with social media, it doesn't make sense for me to measure up my life against Joanna Gaines. I can be inspired by her and reassured, like you said, it's reassuring that you're older than me and you're still doing a lot of what you want to do in a beautiful way, not in the cheesy, I love Joanna Gaines way, but from truly a respectable place. JoJo, we'd love to have you on the podcast. No, but like I admire that. I'm like, wow, look at this woman who is doing all that she loves and she's still at home with her kids and she's built it to the level that she gets to do whatever she wants. But while still she's sacrificing, but it's her choice. It's at her will.
Yeah.
And so I think that goes even for Micah and I in this season. It's like, okay, there's a lot that we could sit and make a list of things that we want to do. We can divvy up what we feel like, well, it's right to do this, it's wrong to do this or whatever. But it just comes down to all of this is just flowing in and out of seasons. And so it's like in this time in our life, what makes sense? What's going to be the sacrifice? Where is it going to go? And then we're moving forward. We're not just staying stuck in this position of poor us. Look how sad we are. It's never going to get better. We've peaked. This is it. 27, I've made it. It doesn't get better from here. And it's like, I think that's the hard thing when you're in a depression mindset or you are depressed. I know that like Micah has a much more depressive tendencies than I do. And that just comes with personality trait. It's just how it's easy. I said this last night, he's got high highs and he's got low lows. And that's okay. But it's knowing that we have almost like a game plan that works for us of like, okay, I see where you're at. Here's where we're going to go out of that, because it's not really an option to just sit in this and not make any different changes.
Well, I think for me too, I think it's unfair to Andrew if every time he comes home, I'm in the depths of despair and he's the one having to pick me back up. I'm like, that gets old.
Yeah. Well, and it's
after a while.
Even like with Micah and I mean, we take turns having our pity parties and well, life's not fair to me today and tomorrow it can be not fair to you. But at the end of the day, it's like, I will always care about where he's at. But at some point, if we're coming up against the same problem over and over, collectively, we've got to sit down and make a change. Like we've got to be intentional, because if we want change, we're going to need to take action. Change isn't going to come from us just sitting around and going, well, I wish I'd book more, sessions and weddings. No one wants to book me. I guess I'm not good enough. And it's like, no, hold on. We always tell each other, you get a day. So if we are feeling down in the dumps, we're like, okay, do you need a day? And we will ask each other. I'm like, are you having a bad day? He's like, I'm having a bad day. I'm like, okay, take your day. Like, have your moment. But tomorrow we're going to talk about this because I also recognize that it's not realistic to go, you're sad, get happy.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, thank you. I feel much better now. It's like, I know that that's not realistic, but it's also not realistic to wonder why change isn't happening when you're just sitting in the same place.
Yes. Yeah. And that's where like rubber meets the road in actual, okay, I've got some things that I need to do. And so we're actually preparing to do something big. We're going to Dallas Market, which is Dallas. I just love Dallas. It's that if you guys probably are familiar with it, it's a huge building, like 16 floors, and it's full of showrooms
this
for
is
products.
The Dallas Market, right?
Mm-hmm. And 1 week in the winter and 1 week in the summer, shops from all over the country come and they place orders for the stuff they want. So the stores that you go to buy wholesale. Mm-hmm. So I am going as a vendor, which is exciting because there's thousands of people that come through. So it's a lot of opportunity.
Yeah.
But it's also not guaranteed that I will get any sales. I talked to a couple of people who did it for the first time in January, and one lady said, now there was a girl next to me, she didn't write an order the whole time. And I was just like, oh Lord, don't let that be me. But she said, but looking at her product, I could tell why. Mm-hmm. I was like, yeah, that makes sense. And so I know that I have a good product. I have proof that it works well in stores. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to go. I'm packing my bags. I'm put some thoughtful presentation behind it. I'm doing the work, and the rest is I've just kind of gone, okay, God, have been given this step. I'm doing the thing. Okay, like, let's go.
Well, and then to recognize nothing is guaranteed. Sales aren't guaranteed.
Yeah.
That people are going to show up's not guaranteed, but it's like what you can count on is I'm going to choose to do the work and take a step. Yeah. And that is a step in the right direction. Like, even if it wasn't, which I'm not saying I want you to make some profit, but it's going that, either way, you choosing to be disciplined and take a step is worth a lot more than sitting and wondering, why is nothing happening for me?
Well, yeah. And it's, it's expensive to go to market. The booth is the most expensive booth I've paid for. But I could either do that and just see, or sit at home and go, it's too expensive for me to go. And then, definitely not have anything. So something has to go first. And so maybe I'll go and I won't do well. I'm like, okay, well, that was informative. Like, why? I wonder if I can talk to people. Why would you not want to put this in your stores? Or I'll go and it will bring me some new customers. I'm like, okay, that informs like what the next step is. But I'm trying to move systematically and just doing what I can do and what I feel like I'm supposed to do, instead of we got to scrap everything.
Yeah. Trash it.
Shut it down.
Shut her down.
And just move forward with a little more confidence and self-starting, and just, okay, let's go. Let's do it.
Well, I'm excited to hear a full detailed report. I want a write-up report of how Dallas Market goes next week.
I'm excited too. And I mean, it's huge. Everything that you buy comes from these stores pretty much. I mean, like huge showrooms for corporate,
Yeah.
So it's pretty, I wish I could just go and be like, I want that. I don't want that at half off. But I'm excited. And there's been already, like, I met another lady who is doing it for the first time too. And we've connected and shared like what we're doing with each other, and I'm so excited to meet her. And so I'm like, if that's the only benefit, she's amazing and she's into some things that I want to get into, and I was able to help her get set up with a few things. So I'm like, if that's the connection, then there we go. Because it's crazy too. So when I went, the reason I am even in Dallas Market in the first place, I went and did another market in McKinney, Texas.
We love Texas.
I was doing the show, and I prayed before the show. It's like, obviously, Lord, I want sales. But it was like, bring me the right people that if there's someone I'm supposed to meet, like, I want to meet that, whoever that is. And a lady from Dallas Market came up and gave me her card. And then another lady's came up and they're like, we work at Michael's. And I'm thinking, oh, they're cashiers at Michael's. Cool. Well, no, they work at the corporate Michael's. And I said, put my kits in your stores. And like, we could help with that. And I have their email. So like, that's another thing that's moving. Yeah, that's moving forward, like as a door. So I'm like, okay, I prayed. I was like, Lord, I'm going with my thing. I'm putting my presentation together. I'm doing what I know. Bring whatever is supposed to be the next step. But also, had I not pushed pause at the beginning of the year and realized I need to get some crap together, I would be crying to go if I had to go to Dallas Market, because I would be like, I can't go because I've got so many holes in my system. So then I have to go back and remind myself, okay, like this is okay. We're okay.
Everything's gonna be okay.
It's gonna be okay. And I think the hard part is how can you know right now what can only be learned in hindsight?
Right.
So I just have to go do the thing.
You just gotta go do it. You gotta go down to Texas. You gotta do your sales. You gotta meet your people. You gotta shake hands and kiss some babies.
I am gonna talk like this the whole time.
I think you'll get lots of money. If you have enjoyed this episode, we hope that you will let us know. You could leave us a review if you're listening on Apple Podcasts. And also if you're a business owner and maybe you can relate to this, or maybe you've related at some point, we love to hear from you. So you can send us an email, you can send us an Instagram message, however it is, and we would love to connect because, like, why can't we be friends?
Why can't we?
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's all I got.
All right. Thanks, you guys. See you next time.